Hi, you have found the podcast Aging Gracefully with Julie Roca, and I am Julie Roca. One of the things that I encounter an awful lot that you don't think about really when you're 16 and you're first getting your driver's license is that you might not always just be able to fly in and out of your car and duck in and out of traffic, run into doctor's appointments or into grocery stores quickly. In fact, one of my best friends encountered it. She was in an accident and had a spinal cord injury that was quite frightening. And all of a sudden, we realized that what we had taken advantage of just to be able to get in and out of the car easily and go places, we just really couldn't do anymore. And so I'm privileged to know a special person in our town who actually has a great name. Her name is Julie. Julie from Life Care Transport has a pretty cool story in a great business and provides a wonderful service. So, Julie, I wanted to bring you in here today to kind of chat about the services that you provide. And because this podcast isn't just focused on Gainesville,
Right.
I think these are some questions that we can discuss that people even outside of Gainesville will get some benefit from. So tell me, what in the world brought you into the transport business?
Well, long story short, my sister owned a transport company, and I worked with her for a long time. She decided that she was going to sell and move. And so it just got me to thinking. I mean, we had dealt with my grandmother kind of in the same situation, needing transportation. And she
Right.
was in another state, she was in Georgia. So just really got me to thinking, like, I feel like I could make a difference
Right. Yep.
in the transport business. And so me and my husband, asked him, what do you think about that? And he was all for it, and believed in me. Thank God.
I
And
think, what is it about the husbands of Julie's, man? Mine
I
is the
don't know.
same.
I know. So, so that's just kind of how we got started. Just wanting to make a difference, in the lives of patients,
Yeah.
and being that more compassionate, company and people, and so that's just kind of the core of what we are. Is just we try to hire people that are just, you know, have a giving heart and just are in it for the right reasons, that
Right.
really love people and love to be around people and to talk to people. You know.
Yeah, because when you're in a transport,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's not just a 2-minute transport, right?
Right. I mean, we take people 5 minutes down the road, or 5 or 10 hours down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it makes a difference because you figure the people are on a stretcher. They might not have ever been on a stretcher except in an ambulance, type situation. So they're scared. They feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
So our job is to make them feel more at ease.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
know, and we do that a lot of different ways. We talk to them, we conversate with them if they're able to. We play the kind of music they like, if they can tell
oh,
us what
that's
kind of
smart.
music they like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do a lot of things to try to make them feel better, because it is a scary situation
Yeah.
sometimes for them.
It is.
So,
And you mentioned something. You might have only ridden on a stretcher in an ambulance. If you've ever ridden on a stretcher in the back of a vehicle, it is nerve-wracking. You do not feel all securely buckled in and all of that
right.
stuff. It's very different to ride in a reclined position in a bed as opposed to sitting up. But now
Right.
you do also have the ability, if somebody's in a wheelchair but can't transfer easily, you have the ability to transport that way as well, right?
Oh, yes. So we transport ambulatory wheelchair or stretcher.
Okay.
Just kind of whatever the patient's need is
Yes.
at
Yeah.
that time. So yeah, we do all that.
Yeah,
And
because before Liz had, the ability to kind of get in and out of the wheelchair, she had to be transported either in a bed or in a wheelchair. And so we learned a lot more about that kind of thing.
right.
One of the common complaints that I hear is the timing. And I think that one of the things that your company really it takes pride in is the fact that you guys are very time efficient.
Yes.
Because I have heard many people complain when you get that appointment to that specialist finally after months and months, you cannot show up an hour late.
Right. And so that, that brings, there we go back to the stress thing. That brings a lot of stress on the family and the patient.
Yeah.
Am I going to make it on time? Are they going to show up? So a lot of our business is private pay, and, a lot of it is, reoccurring customers, patients that know they can rely on us. So that's a very important factor.
Yes. For sure.
And not that we're perfect. Nobody's perfect. But, that's the biggest thing. We strive to be there on time and get them to their appointment on time. That's just the biggest goal. Yeah.
Let's talk about the pay a little bit, because I know that this is a question that you get and that I get as well. Does Medicare or Medicaid pay for transport?
Well, years ago they did. And I think in the beginning a lot of people were just really confused by why they change things. But basically what happens now is if you have Medicare or Medicaid, it has to go in the state of Florida through a third-party broker.
Okay.
And they do that, I believe, just for the simple fact of being able to manage things a little bit more, because it is a lot.
It is a lot.
To deal with. And so, many years ago we were able to bill Medicare and Medicaid, but we are not in the state of Florida allowed to do that any longer.
Yeah.
So a lot of times what people do, they will private pay themselves, and sometimes, have that conversation with Medicare, to try to get them to reimburse them. But, so we do a lot of private pays, and we deal with some third-party brokers.
Okay.
But unfortunately, they, let's just say your mom's in Chans or North Florida, wherever it may be, and they need transporting like today.
Right.
They're not timely in that manner.
Right.
So
okay.
It doesn't
that makes
happen,
total sense.
Yeah. So it doesn't really happen the day of necessarily. It could be a few days, and unfortunately, a lot of the companies that are doing that are not super reliable. So a lot of times a family just decide, I'm just going to pay for it myself, and, whether they get our information from case managers or, just word of mouth or Google or however they get it. So
you mentioned something else, same-day services. Do you guys provide same-day services?
Yeah, we
really?
do. We do on-demand transportation.
That's great.
We have to do that a lot, for the hospitals.
Yes, yeah.
Because the doctor will come around and make their rounds that morning and say, hey, they can
You're ready to discharge.
They can go to rehab or they can go home or whatever the case may be. And so we definitely do on demand. The only thing that we request is like for appointments, if you're a family member calling for an appointment, at least give us 24-hour notice, because we do stay pretty booked up doing, appointments.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we do like that 24-hour notice, just where we can see, if we can make it work, and if we can't, obviously the more time we have, the better.
The better, yeah.
So, I mean, if you make an appointment on Tuesday, or, your doctor tells you on Tuesday, you need to come in next Monday, then, don't wait till Sunday to call. Go ahead and call. We don't run the payment information until the day of. That way, in case something happens and
That's
the
smart.
appointment has to be canceled.
That's great.
For whatever reason, so you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, that's great news.
So, just as soon as you find out about the appointment, I would say call your transportation provider.
That is a good point. I had not really thought about that too much. And then you had a couple of other great questions on here. Why can't I get them to pay for my parents to come back to the hometown for rehab? Let's talk about that a little bit, because that's a question that you get regularly.
We do. So, and I'm sure the hospitals get it too.
I'm sure.
We're like the second. But basically, they will not, and them being Medicare, will not pay. Let's say you're in Gainesville and you're in the hospital in Gainesville. They're going to pay for you to go to the closest
skilled nursing facility.
from like 2 miles, 5 miles.
Right.
They're not going to pay for you to go to Jacksonville
Or
just to say,
Orlando
or
to be near
Orlando
your
or anything
family.
like that.
Right.
So that's where the private pay situation comes in. So if the family's like, well, I absolutely don't want them here, I want them transported back closer to our home, or whatever the case may be, then that's where the private pay situation comes in. And, we'll give them a quote, and, a lot of times, get the trip because they don't want, their family
Right.
member far away from them.
And you
So,
don't want that. You want to be able to move your family member to a place where you're going to be able to keep your eyes on them as much as possible. That accountability in our skilled nursing and rehab facilities, and even in our assisted livings, is so important. That what I motivate families to do is get them as close to you as possible.
Right.
Yes, they may want to come back when they're done with rehab and be near their physicians and their church friends and their, in their hometown.
Right.
But for the time that they're in the rehab situation, they really do need to be somewhere where you're checking in.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
I think it's great that you guys offer that service to be able to take them wherever they need to go.
Yeah.
You mentioned 5 to 10 hours away.
Yeah, I mean, we've been all over.
What's the longest transport that you've done?
I guess we went to, I'm trying to think, we've been all over the place, but we've been to New Jersey, New York.
Okay.
Gosh, I'm trying to think, like, what is the furthest we've ever been?
Because I recently had somebody call me from Maine and said, Dad really wants to go down and live like in the Villages area,
Right.
but there's no way we're going to be able to transport him.
Right.
So do you provide a nurse in that situation? Because they're going to have.
We do not. What we will do is put another person. A lot of times we're trying to get a CNA. Especially if they, long transport like that.
Yeah.
And they need,
they're going to need
accommodations.
accommodations.
Right.
Yes, that's a very nice way to say it.
Yeah. So the driver, obviously, he's driving. He's not going to be able to do that. And so we will send a CNA, or if the family member, a lot of times a family member will want to ride, especially if it's a long trip or something like that, and just fly back themselves. So we have that a lot.
Have you ever done overnights and broken the trip up?
We have not. We just typically, we've driven, 10 to 14 hours. Nonstop with, with two people.
Yeah.
Right. But definitely encourage, always for a family member to ride. We allow one family member, and most companies will. That provides them also, whether they're going a mile down the road or, they're going 1,000 miles down the road. That provides the patient with some more comfort, that they know they have a family member, and we have a seat that sits right next to the stretcher. So, they're right there. We'll stop, get water, get food, whatever it is that they need. So we always encourage a family member to ride.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because there are needs that they're going to have. Even in a 2 or 3 hour drive, they may still have some of those needs.
Right.
Is there ever a time that you feel like it's better not to transport a loved one closer to you?
I really don't. I think that it's best to have them, as close to you as possible, like you said, where you can check in on them, where they don't feel kind of left alone.
Right, yeah.
That you're close to them, you're going to come check on them, they're going to see you. Because that's, I know when we were dealing with my mom, that was a situation with her. Well, I'm never going to get to see you because she lived in Georgia, we live in Florida.
Right.
And so that was a real struggle. So I know it is. So I feel like the closer you can get them to you, the better.
And here's where I love to, again, throw another plug for planning. Find out what your loved one's needs are. Maybe they're great to live in a 3-story house at 65, but at 70, maybe they're having some mobility problems. Start to have those conversations early.
Right.
Much better to move a loved one down at 70 than at 80 when they may be very sick and they may
things have deteriorated.
have deteriorated quite a bit, and the journey will not be as fun for them.
Right.
So, but I know that you guys do a great job making that journey as comfortable and stress-free as possible.
Yes, we try to, yes.
What if somebody is outside of the Gainesville area and they need to find a transport company? Tell me some things that they should be looking for that you guys, I know, pride yourself on, but what are some of those things that they need to ask?
So first and foremost, I would say, when you start looking for a company in your town, whether it be, Ocala or whether it be North Carolina, Tennessee, wherever it may be, I think the internet is a very good tool to, you can see what other people think about the company that have used them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't base it solely on that.
Yeah, because you know who goes and makes the comments? It's a lot of times it's the negative people. It's the people that had a bad experience.
I think everybody struggles with that. We have all these people that call and tell us what a wonderful job that our drivers have done.
Yes.
And so I just always encourage them, go leave us
Please
a review.
leave us a review.
But it's kind of hard because, a lot of times, it's actually the patient that we transport. And a lot of times, they're 70, 80 years old. They're not,
Tech savvy.
To be able to do that. But we just encourage their family, anytime they have a great experience with us, to go and leave that review. But like you said, you can't base it solely on that because more people tend to leave, only negative things and that they've experienced. But definitely, and also just to touch base on a second probably good spot is we have a lot of people that will call and say, the hospital recommended you guys.
Okay.
So we really like that. But we get a lot of those calls. So I would definitely, your hospital, your local hospital is a great resource to.
How about your physician?
Give you, and your physician. I mean, we work with a lot of people around, and a lot of doctors and doctors' offices, and they have our paperwork up, and recommend us. So we certainly appreciate that. So that is another resource. But definitely, I would say your hospital is a great resource.
Yeah, that is a great resource. One question that I get sometimes is, when there is transport brought, especially someone who may be cognitively challenged, so maybe they're dealing with dementia, do you guys just drop them off an appointment and leave and come and pick them back up? How does that work?
So most of the time in situations like that, they will send an aide if it's coming from a facility, or a family member will have to ride.
Do they have to ride, or could they meet you there?
They could meet
potentially?
us there.
Okay.
They could meet us there. We have them do both.
Yeah.
So whatever is best for the patient is what we want.
Yes.
So if we get there and they're just super confused and the family's, we'll just meet you there because we want to drive our car, or whatever the circumstances may be, there may be times where we're like, well, we think it would be better if you ride with us,
Yeah, so the next time you may be asking them to ride with you.
Right.
Okay,
Correct.
I gotcha.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, so.
Yep, I worked in an assisted living, and that was one of the things that we provided 1 or 2 days out of the week. We provided transportation. And so I remember, we had to have a family member on the other side because it just wouldn't be safe to drop your loved one off when they're cognitively, not aware and able to care for themselves.
And, we've had this happen many times. I'm sure other companies have as well. We'll get them to their appointment, and, if the family member's supposed to meet them, they might be running 5 or 10 minutes behind. And so we don't just leave them sitting there.
Great.
We have to make sure, if they're in that condition that somebody's there with them.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If we have to stay 10 or 15 minutes, we do that. Definitely not going to leave them in that, in that situation, alone.
Yeah. And if an emergency arises and the loved one, the family member doesn't make it, in that case, you're still not going to leave their loved one.
No,
You're going to pack them
no.
back up right and take them back to a place of safety.
Right. If we have the availability, we will stay with them, and it's just kind of hard because our schedules,
Yes.
are pretty
Yeah.
pretty packed most of the time. But if it's in a situation that we can move things around and accommodate them to stay for the appointment, that's the goal.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, several times we have had to take them back
Yeah.
and wait for the family.
And I think that's
to
another
reschedule.
good question when you're looking for a transport company. What happens if, if I am running late? Because stuff happens. I mean, you can get caught in traffic or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think, to me, that's a really important thing to ask, just to make sure that your loved one is not just getting dropped off and they have cognitive issues and now they're lost and they're scared and they have no idea who to contact or how to get home.
Which is very scary.
Yes, it's very scary. And some of the doctor's offices know your loved one well enough to, know, and some of them don't. I mean, you could get dropped off at a very busy clinic and they have no idea who your loved one is.
Right.
So, so I think that's pretty important. Do you have any other things that you want to share with us before we head out? Any tips, any tricks?
I don't know about
Any
tricks,
ideas?
but back to what you were asking about how to find the right transport company. We're a veteran-owned company, very proud.
That's right, yeah.
Veteran-owned company here in Gainesville, and I would say, if you have a veteran-owned company in your town, wherever you may live, I think it's definitely worth a shot to give them a call first, and especially if you're a veteran yourself, because we offer discounts for veterans.
I was going to ask,
We
yeah.
offer 10% discount for our veterans that
that's
call.
good.
So, when you have a veteran-owned company, I think that their standards are potentially, most of the time, a lot higher.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yep, the military asks a lot of their people. So
right. So I think
that's a
carries over
standard
into-
that probably carries over. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, my only tip, I guess, would be call in enough time, especially for those appointments. Because, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
We had one call the other morning and said, my mom refused to let me take her today. And we typically take her. And she called that morning. The appointment was in, 2 hours. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
But
she is
just
a
can't
frequent,
do it.
Frequent patient of ours, but we just couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I felt really
yeah.
bad.
And with your money back guarantee, if things don't go well, there's no excuse to not call as soon as you've got that appointment in hand,
Right.
especially if it's for one of those specialties. You got the neurological appointments, or you've got the you need to go see someone about heart doctor or something like that. You're knowing about that
Right.
months sometimes in advance.
Yeah.
Call it in and set it up so that you guys are prepared and
Right.
and you're ready.
Yeah,
So.
because oftentimes they'll forget.
I know.
They're
Hey.
like, oh, my mom has to be at this appointment, and it took forever to get this appointment.
Yep.
And if she don't go, it could be another 6 months before she's seen.
Yes.
So definitely encourage you to call.
Yep. We get so busy in life and we say, oh, we're going to do this. And we got plenty of time. And that time flies.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
Most definitely. So that would be definitely a good tip there.
Call sooner rather than later. That's
Yeah.
a good one for me, too.
Yeah.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for coming. I
thank
appreciate
you
you
for
being
having
on.
me.
Yeah,
I
this is
appreciate it.
something that I don't think everybody thinks about until all of a sudden
Until they need it.
you need it. And then it's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, I have to figure this out now.
Yeah.
So I think this was really great. If you liked this show, please like it, subscribe, and share. Share with others. It's used as a tool, and we would love for others to find it. So thank you so much for coming.